The webinar is about web development with React.js. So let me give an overview about that. So today's agenda is about the introduction to React.js and what are the prerequisites and what is the algorithm which is being used in React.js and why we use React.js over other libraries and frameworks, and what is the career path and opportunities which we obtain when we learn React.js. So before that, so as I told, there is something called React. What is React? React is basically a front-end library. So you guys must be wondering what is front-end and what is back-end. So let me tell you a scenario. If you consider any web application, the web application is split into two different zones. One is called as the front-end development and second one is called the back-end development. In order to construct a front-end, in order to construct a web application, we need these two to be built. So what is front-end is nothing but the user interface layer, which we see, which we access the application. All these things are related to the front-end thing. And backend is nothing but the layer which handles the business logic and gets the data from the database and passes it to the UI. UI is nothing but again the front-end thing. React is nothing but again it's an UI library. UI library is nothing but the user interface library which is used for the front-end development. If you want to give an introduction about React, as I told, React is just a small library which is a front-end library which is not an end-to-end framework. So, and the second thing is it is an open source. Any person who needs to develop an application using React can access the library for free of cost. So, and the second thing is React is basically used to only generate powerful views. Views in the sense if you consider again a web application, so you'll be having three things in a web application. One is the model, one is the view, and one is the controller. We call it as MVC. View is nothing but again the user interface screen which we see it, and model is nothing but the logic which we write, and the controller is nothing but the thing which helps us in binding the model to the view. In this MVC pattern, view is the only thing which will be handled by the React.js. So as I told, React.js has several advantages over other libraries because you can see React.js helps in building the very rich user interfaces. So in modern world, if you guys have ever wondered, let us say if we go to some 5 or 6 years back, if we scroll our time back and if we see the applications used to consume a lot of time to load, and we used to wait for 5 to 6 seconds for every action so that the application will load and the action will be presented. So that is what we used to do. But now it's in this fast-pacing world, we want everything to be handled in a fraction of seconds. So that is where React comes into picture. And one more thing to be presented about React is that in React, everything is a component. So we have to remember the word React is nothing but everything is a component in React. So let us say you can take any example in modern world, we'll say in programming world, we'll say everything is an object and object has properties. Let us say if you are in a classroom or if you are in a room, so we'll call it as a class. And what are the objects? Let us say we have something called a pen or we have a bag, or everything is an object, and we will access the objects with the help of the properties of the object. Let us say the name is a pen and the color is blue. All these things are properties. So normally we'll be using objects in programming world, but in React it's a component based library. So everything can be called as a component. So we'll write common codes in React in such a way that when we present some input, we'll get the output. It's how to say, you can take a charger, for example. In real life scenario, it's a component. If you just plug into the power socket, you'll get the output as the current will be the output. That is how we build or write a React component. And one more advantage of React is that it has easier integration with other libraries. We can integrate React with other libraries like Redux or other things in order to achieve whatever the functionality we require. As I told, why we need React. So React is, as I told, one advantage is that it is an open source library. And second thing is that it is maintained and created by Facebook. So basically Facebook has created React, and React is it is supported by all the applications now, all the modern day web applications the Instagram, the Netflix, all these things uses React in order to generate or build the powerful user interface screens, so that the performance time is very high and the users have a very good rich user interface. things. So that is the reason the entire industry is adapting to React compared to any other front-end libraries or frameworks. So, and as I told, it was developed and maintained by Facebook, and there's a huge demand for the skill set because the industry realized the importance of React, and almost like every organization has started to build their applications and migrate their applications from other technologies to React, so that the demand for the skill set is very high, and you'll have a number of opportunities for React. And as I told, since it was created and maintained by Facebook, it has greater community support. And as I told, in React, everything is a component. So basically, the component purpose is that if we provide input, we'll get the output. So that is how we write the React code. And the React code which we write is always reusable, in the sense, let us say if we have something called headers or footers in a web application, and we need to use it really across the application, we will not be writing it in each and every page of the application. Instead, we'll be writing a single component and we'll be reusing it in multiple things. Second thing is that we have something called DOM. DOM is nothing but we call it as document object model. See, if you consider any application, let us say, if you consider any web application, it is always represented by list of web pages. So in each web page, the browser calls each web page as a document, and a document is nothing but it contains a list of objects. So we call DOM as nothing but a document object model, which is nothing but a web page. Web page will have the code written in that format. So for effectively updating and managing the DOM, we use React compared to other libraries or frameworks. So yeah. And always remember, like I was telling, React helps us in generating powerful views. So we need to understand the importance. Why? Because the industry is adapting to React, but not to other libraries or frameworks. Because as I told, it only handles the views in the MVC, but not the entire MVC itself. But still, it is being used widely. The reason being, it generates powerful views. Powerful views in the sense it provides a view which is nothing but the better user interface layer, which any other library will not be able to present. So only React has that powerful feature, and that is the reason I told few applications like the Netflix, all these things, Instagram, all these things uses this React because their purpose is they want to provide a better user interface to all the customers across the globe. So let us say tomorrow a user comes and he tries to access Instagram or Netflix, and he faces some delay in the load of the application or loading of the video. So the users they'll not be happy with the user interface. So that's the reason React is basically provides powerful views, and even though it is a small library, it is being used by all the applications, modern day applications. Yeah, I think we can proceed to next screen. So in order to learn React, always remember I told there are a couple of things with respect to web application development. One is the front end and one is the back end. So we'll use React.js for front end development. There are three prerequisites which we need to know when we want to start coding using React.js. One is HTML, second one is CSS, and third one is JavaScript. So if you see React.js or any other library or framework, all these three things, all these libraries or frameworks are built on top of these three things. So HTML and CSS and JavaScript acts as the roots for front-end development. Without this, we cannot understand what is React.js. So we need to have a deep understanding, or at least a basic understanding about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in order to start learning React.js. So this we call it modern day JavaScript, which is ES6, which is nothing but an enhancement over the ES5 JavaScript. We call it as ES6 JavaScript, and React makes use of ES6 JavaScript compared to the ES5. We can code it using ES5, but still ES6 is widely used in React.js web application development. And apart from these three skills, there's nothing called other dependencies which are required to, basically perform web application development using React. So HTML and CSS3 and JavaScript. So these three things act as roots, and whatever the frameworks or libraries which we are going to develop, these three things are mandatory. And when we go to the software requirements, so you can go to the next screen, and we have a couple of things. One is the code editor. So the text editors, we need one text editor, and we need a library called Node.js. Text editors are nothing but the editors in which we write code. usually it is always recommended to write or use text editors such as Visual Studio Code, because Visual Studio Code is the text editor which is widely used, which has all the end-to-end features, and it is widely used by all the developers across the industry. And there is a library which I told, which is Node.js. It is again an open source library. It can be downloaded from the website https://www.nodejs.org. So that is, these two things are the software requirements which are required in order to proceed with the web application development using React. So everything, if you notice, everything is like an open source when it comes to React, and all the like there are predefined code or components which are written by other developers, and it is also created and maintained by Facebook, and it can be accessed and it can be reused in our web application development as well. And if we proceed to next screen, we can see there's something called diffing algorithm. So if you remember, I was explaining about DOM. So DOM is nothing but the document object model, which I was saying. So if you remember again, like I used to tell, like a web application is a collection of web pages, and each web page is nothing but a document, and document will be represented in the form of objects. And if we change anything in the document, so we call it as document object model manipulation. So we are basically manipulating the existing document object. That is what we call it as web page change or anything. For effective management of web page, React uses diffing algorithm. If we consider any other library or framework, even though if we make a small change in the web page, let us say if we have a user interface screen, and if we are entering the username and password, and if we are trying to log in, then we are doing some action. So we are basically manipulating the DOM. So what happens at the backend is that it will try to create, or it will try to develop a new tree. So new tree is nothing but, again, it will try to develop a new document object model on top of the existing document object model. So for the small change which we did, it will try to create the DOM again from the scratch. So it will result in high performance, because what we need is nothing but a small change. What we did is a small change, but what we got is nothing but the entire document object tree is getting updated. And because of this, the time consumption is very high and the performance is lost. So whereas React uses diffing algorithm, in this diffing algorithm, we call React uses something called virtual DOM. Instead of basically using the actual DOM, React uses virtual DOM, and it will use the algorithm, diffing algorithm, to effectively update the DOM tree, and it will finally update the virtual DOM with the existing DOM, and we'll have a very good user interface layer, and it will improve the performance time. So as I told, React has something called re-rendering or repainting. See, re-rendering or repainting time is nothing but like whenever we make a state change in the sense I told, any change which we do in the web page is called a state change. So when we perform some action like logging in or like clicking a hyperlink or anything, so basically it takes time to re-render the DOM and present us with the latest web page which we want to view in the UI. So for that, the re-rendering, for that process, we call it as re-rendering or repainting of UI, and React provides a very effective manner in doing it. So in the next screen, we could see a screen. So here, if you notice carefully, these two things are the diffing algorithms. So this is how the React works. Normally, let us consider the second picture. So which we call it as browser DOM. And if you see here, if let us say if you are making some change to any one particular node is nothing but the document. I told in DOM, it is a list of objects. So each thing is called as an object or DOM node. So here, if I'm making some change to one particular node, it will be made on the existing DOM. This is in case of other libraries. So if I make some change to the first thing, so let us view the first picture, and here we can see there's something called red color, which is nothing but it symbolizes there is a change in the node. So if we make the change over here, okay, if we consider other libraries, what it will happen is that it will build the DOM tree again, because there is a change which has happened in the one node. And if we consider the second picture in the first row itself, if we made change to the other node as well. So again, what it will happen is that it will again reconstruct the DOM tree. So for every change, it will reconstruct the DOM tree and it will present as the final tree. So our requirement is that if you notice the first and second diagram, like we have basically updated DOM twice, and we have created the DOM tree twice, and we have presented the final DOM tree. So here we are basically like doing the DOM manipulation twice. Instead, if you use the React algorithm, what it will do is nothing but when we make the first change, and it will wait for some time to let us know like if there is one more change. So here in the second tree, you can see like again we made some more change. So basically it didn't reconstruct the DOM. It was waiting for the other changes. Now again, when the second change is also made, it will again wait for some periodic time. And once the time is reached and it notices there is no change, it will like the virtual DOM, it will update the virtual DOM, which is nothing but the DOM which it has created virtually, and it will basically update it to the browser DOM. And you can see how the DOM is effectively updated. In the second picture, you can see the second row. You can see in the first row, we made changes twice, but in the second row, you can see there is no DOM tree update. The nodes are not updated. Final node is updated from the virtual DOM to the browser DOM, which is the same change. So that is how virtual DOM updates compared to the other libraries. So this is why we call it as like, if there is a small change, it will only update that particular change instead of completely rewriting the entire tree. And that is why we call React.js has this algorithm, diffing algorithm, and it uses the concept of virtual DOM to effectively update and manipulate the document object model. And it results in high performance time because it will not unnecessarily consider or construct the trees again and again for every single state change. It basically updates the tree for periodically for every change which we do. So this is the advantage of a diffing algorithm in React, and that is the reason we basically have powerful views and we'll have a very good user interface layer in React, but not in terms of any other libraries, because in other libraries or frameworks, we will be basically using the real DOM update. So if you consider the same example, we would have been updating the DOM tree thrice. So instead of actually in React, if you see here, we are only updating the DOM tree once, and that too, the piece of code which has been updated, that will only be updated instead of constructing the entire tree from scratch. So that is the reason, like, I mean, we use React or any other libraries. Yeah. So if you go to the next screen, you can see I told React uses declarative approach. In the sense, see, React basically uses conceptually, it hits refresh button whenever there is a change. So remember this point, like it conceptually hits refresh button. So I'll be showing you a demo. So you can see here how whenever we make the code change and save it, it will automatically get rendered in the browser. And that is the point which I'm stating here. And second thing is that, as I was clearly mentioning you guys, like in other libraries, whenever I make a change, it will construct the DOM tree from first. So for even a small change, it will construct the entire DOM tree. So it will impact the performance, but React, it will only construct the top part which has changed. It will not construct all the nodes. Instead, it will construct only the node which has changed. So that is the advantage of React. And second thing is that I was telling, like, it helps us in writing components in a reusable manner. So I was telling like an example of header and footer. So if you consider any application like an Amazon website or something, the header is something which will remain same, and similarly the footer, whereas there are different pages like the cart pages, the order description pages, all these things will be there. So product description pages, all these things will vary, but whereas the header and footer will remain the same. So we will not be writing the reusable piece of code. Instead, we'll be writing a reusable piece of code. Instead of writing header and footer in every application, we'll write a component for header and a component for footer, and we'll reuse the component in every web page so that the same component can be reused in multiple places. That is the advantage of writing code using React. And as I told, like the components can be encapsulated in the sense the component logic can be hidden. So basically, whenever you provide, I was telling this is the core principle of React. So when you provide an input, it will throw an output. So that is the purpose of React. And second thing is that whenever we write a piece of code, we need to make sure that code is written in for a specific functionality and that it is working fine as per the functionality which we wrote. So for that purpose, what we'll do is nothing but we'll write unit testing for the code, so that we'll make sure that the code, we'll make sure that the code which we wrote is working in the exact similar way as we require. And the next important thing is that you can see the boilerplate code redundancy is minimized. Boilerplate code is nothing but the unwanted code which we write using the other frameworks or libraries. Like if you consider other libraries, we'll be writing excess amount of code, whereas in React, the boilerplate code redundancy is minimized. In the sense, we'll like let us consider an example of reusable component itself. If we make use of reusable components, we'll not be writing the code redundancy. That is, we'll not be writing the code and again in a number of times on a number of places. So that is the one more advantage of using React. And if we go to the next screen, we can see basically this is how we basically create a React app. So we have a couple of ways to create a React app. So one such way is called as like using NPX model, and second way is NPM model. So here you can see the first line is that it says NPX create React app, and we'll be providing us with the project name. So the reason, if you guys remember, I was telling like we need to make use of Node.js. So a Node.js is the library which we use in order to basically perform the React.js development. And I told it is an open source, which will basically download it from the particular website. So here NPX and NPM represents the Node package managers. So we basically, in order to create the application, we need to install Node.js in our basically in our web application development environment. Here you can see in the first thing, it basically states NPX create React app project name. Whereas in the second column, you can see the first thing is NPM install create React app. And second line states create React app followed by the project name. So here, both the ways are same, like they do the same thing, which is nothing but creating a React app project. Whereas here, there are two ways but we are using two ways. But the only difference between the two is that NPX is nothing but it will basically perform the NPM installation of the React app, and then it will also create the React app. It will check if the React app is installed. If it is installed, then it will basically create a project name using the create React app. So that is the second column. We have the first and second commands. It will be, instead of writing two commands, if we use npx create React app project name, it will take care of both of the things, and it will basically create the project. Apart from these things, everything is the same. Like we'll go to the project root directory, and we have something called npm start, which will start the application, and we have something called application will always be by default loaded in the port 3000. So here I was telling you guys, like the changes are automatically saved and refreshed. That is one of the important features of React. And you can also see again, npx is npm package runner. So it's basically npm is node package manager, and npx is nothing but it's an npm package runner. So it will basically install npm package and it will create the application. That is the only difference. You can create the application either of the ways. It will work the same way. So if you go to the next slide, so I'll show you a small demo like how the code will work. You can see here. So what I'm doing here is nothing but here we have something called the application, which is a sample application. Here you can see by default it is loaded in the port 3000. And this was the code editor which I was talking about, which is nothing but the Visual Studio Code. In this code, we'll be basically writing the application. We'll be writing the application code for the application. And you can see here. Now, if you see here, this is a basic sample example. Now, what I'll be doing is nothing but I'll perform some state change. Like I'll be basically removing all this content, this edit source, all this, and the hyperlink as well. Now, what I'll do is nothing but I'll basically say hello world. And notice I didn't save it. You can see here. Now, what I'm going to do is nothing but I'm going to minimize it. And here, if you see, now I'm going to save it. And if I save, we can see the content will be automatically refreshed. I'm not going to press the refresh button in the browser. I'm just going to save my code over in the code editor. See, I saved it, and you can see the code is automatically updated. That is what we call it as like React as the automatic refresh hitting functionality ability. So here I'm going to revert my things, and again I'm going to save it, and see here the code will automatically update. So this is how, like, this is the reason, like it will basically update the user interface in with a greater performance. Like it will basically update it in a very high manner. Since it is a small application, like I'm just performing some small state change, we are not able to observe the like if we use some other libraries or frameworks, again, we'll have the same thing, like the performance will be good. But if we go to the enterprise level applications, and it has large number of, nodes and all these things. So whenever we make a state change for a small thing, like it shouldn't basically affect the performance. Shouldn't basically consider the building the tree from scratch. It should basically consider updating the only the node which has changed. So that is the reason we basically use React.js. And this is what I was talking about, React.js. I can see here. And this is the basic sample demo, like to differentiate like how basically React updates the view and how the auto refresh button in React works. So instead of manually updating the browser. So yeah. So this is the demo which I was showing. And one more thing is that we have something called lifecycle methods in React. So it's basically let us remember, like I was telling one thing, if we recollect, like in React, everything is a component. So always remember the statement, React is everything is a component. And each component, when it loads or when the component is unloaded, it has certain lifecycle methods which will execute on each component. So the lifecycle methods are basically presented as three things. One is the mounting phase, one is the updating phase, one is the unmounting phase. So basically, whenever a component is being loaded, so whenever, like, let us say, when it's new, when we type an application URL, the login page is getting loaded. So that is where we call it as login component is being loaded. So when it is being loaded, the phase called a mounting lifecycle phase. So these mounting phase lifecycle methods will get executed. And a simple example for updating phase would be like we just saw, like we updated the content in our demo application, and we could see the content is getting updated. So when we update the content, the updated lifecycle phase methods will be called. And similarly, let us say if we are navigating from login page, if we did, if we sign up and if we click login button, and if we are navigating to the home page of the web application, then the login page is being like removed from the browser. So we are basically shown up at the home page. So this phase is called as unmounting phase for login component. That is, the login component is going to get removed from the browser. So that is called as unmounting phase. And that is where the unmounting phase lifecycle methods for React will be basically come into picture. So these three things are like the mandatory things which will happen for every component on load and update and unload phases. So this is just an overview about the React lifecycle method, and like each lifecycle method, each phase has a number of lifecycle methods, and that needs to be understood in order to basically perform the effective coding in React.js. So, and for as I told, like I was basically reiterating the same point, like for effective performance and for generating the powerful views, we'll be using React.js. And React.js is something which will handle only the view in an MVC pattern, but it will not handle the model or controller. It will only handle the view. So still, it is widely being used across the industry because it provides a greater performance compared to any other JavaScript library or framework. So how React is evolutionized in the field is nothing but like, in order to give an overview, what happened is that when before a decade, so it was almost like in 2010, before that, we don't have any other JavaScript libraries. The developers were writing code using JavaScript, and for every call from the browser, we had something like the performance time used to be huge, and we used to basically write a bulk code using JavaScript. The Google has developed something called as Angularjs Framework, which was a wide hit across the industries and across the IT industry, and it was adopted by all the organizations. But still, the people felt like it was an enhancement over the modern. It was an enhancement over the traditional JavaScript library, but still, as the industry progressed towards basically when the industry thought like they need a good effective performance, like then they were in search of or creation of new library. During this time, what Facebook did is nothing but they built in their user interfaces. Like they had a couple of features like and comment features in Facebook were built using React. And during that time, React was not a separate library. it was a piece of code which was written by Facebook for their own purpose. But later, when the developers noticed how the features are like as fast as possible, like, and it has great performance time, the Facebook itself, they realized they need to basically start writing the code. They need to make React as a library. So basically, they acquired Instagram and they wrote the Instagram using React, and they made React as a separate library. Now, once React was made a separate library, all the developers were like they were very happy because they could see how effective is the Instagram and how effective is this library. So this library is being like people developers started using this library, and they basically used it for all the web applications which were built on top of the existing web applications, or even for new web applications they started using React, and they realized the importance of React, and that was the trend which was set by React, like that in such a way that all the web applications had like almost like greater performance time when compared to any other libraries or frameworks which were presented. Even though we have like other libraries like Vue.js, we have Backbone.js, Express.js, all these things are there still. React provides the best effective performance time, and it will also help in generating the powerful views. So like that is the reason almost all the applications were built on React. And as telling, like in 2013, React was like open sourced, and it was basically consumed by all the organizations across the industry. And this example I was giving is nothing but Netflix. Netflix is like one of the widely used entertainment applications across the globe. So that was built using React because they obviously know the effect or performance they'll obtain using React. So this is just an example to show you guys, like there are a number of other applications which were also built on React, on the modern day-to-day applications which we use in React. So the reason why I gave Netflix and Instagram is because we will know these applications are being used in our day-to-day life activities, and we know how effective is the performance compared to the other applications. And this is how React has dominated the other libraries, and it's been like 7 to 8 years, and still it is like the best library, and it is being used widely across the organization. And if you go to the next slide, you can see the learning curve. So this is how basically the reason I mentioned regional interest for Angular and React. So this is how there's a minor change, the Angular and React is being like replaced here. So if you see here, like in 95%, it's in the United States or United Kingdom or Canada, Singapore, you can see the clients has basically adopted to React over Angular, and this is the regional wise interest for React versus Angular. So this is just an overview about React versus Angular, and we can move to the next screen. So when we speak about the career path and job opportunities, React is very a niche skill, and it has it is like in terms of remuneration wise, like it is one of the best skills in the IT industry. And as I told, like almost all the organizations are building their applications using React. So there is a demand for React technology in all the organizations, and all the clients want an effective performance. And so there is always a huge demand for this skill across the globe. And if you're a fresher and if you want to start with some skill, then it is always recommended to start with React, because if you start the skill with if you start a career with a new skill like React, then obviously like the career opportunities and the career growth will be to a huge extent. And as I was reiterating this point again and again, like it is almost used by every IT organization. And like if you compare a normal software developer or a software engineer, and if you see a person who knows React or JavaScript library, there is always like a growth rate of almost 3 times the normal software developer can grow when it comes to React. And in India around, like we have almost like 0.2 million job openings for React in India alone. So if you see the in worldwide, like we have a huge demand for the for React in across the globe. Like if you see next India, there's a huge opportunity for React in Singapore, and we also have a number of opportunities in UK and US as well. So I mean, like since I was telling, like React was open sourced in 2013, and it's been 8 years, and still it is the best library in terms of performance. And the React developers or the developers across the globe are like realizing the importance of React, and they even have the same statement, like they feel like React will be continuing to dominate for a couple of decades at least for in the future. So and React is something, it is being maintained by Facebook. As I told, it is backed by Facebook, and all the features are being like new features are always being upgraded in React, and new components are being like released by Facebook and other the developers across the globe in React. So the React will obviously be a stable technology, and we can rely upon it, and we can always like learn it. So we'll have a better career, and the chances of getting a job as a fresher is very high compared to any other skills if we learn React. Yeah. So this is about the webinar on React.